Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQ Film Festival. This is our 38th annual film festival, and we have some amazing films this year. One of the films that we all love very dearly is Jimpa, which I saw at Sundance this year, and all of the programmers have adored. And we're going to talk to the director of Jimpa, Sophie Hyde, in just a moment. Then we'll read a brief description, and then we'll start our conversation. Hannah takes her non-binary teenager Frances to Amsterdam to visit their gay grandfather Jim, lovingly known as Jimpa. But Frances's desire to stay abroad with Jimpa for a year means Hannah is forced to reconsider her beliefs about parenting and finally confront old stories about the past. Please welcome writer-director Sophie Hyde.
Hello.
Thank you so much for not only making this movie and sharing it with our audience, for taking time to talk to us today.
Thanks. I'm really glad to be talking to you.
It's a pleasure. This is a very personal film for you.
It is a personal film. It's like I think all my films are personal, so I think this one's just so explicitly personal that
Yeah.
it's sort of out loud that it's it largely inspired by my father and my own child, and therefore I guess myself, and I think using those relationships that I think are really crucial in my life and have taught me a lot, to explore some ideas and some stories that I wanted to put in the world. So it's a fictionalized version of real people.
So how nervous were you when you started this, knowing that it was so personal?
Like stupidly not nervous,
Okay.
I think is the answer. Like I originally wanted to put a grandfather character and a grandchild in a room, and that was inspired by a desire to have my father who had passed away and my child who was kind of coming out into their non-binary trans kind of queer identity, both kind of very big activists. Like I had this idea that I wanted to put them in a room and see them speak to each other. And that's where the film came from. So I didn't imagine that we would tell the story that was so closely linked to our lives, just that that would shoot off to something. But my writing partner, Matt, was like, I'm really interested if we also put the third generation, the between generation in, i.e. you. and so I guess that it was sort of like it just steamrolled. Like we just sort of started doing it. I wasn't thinking too much about the implication. I wasn't thinking too much about how I would be seen or our family would be scrutinized when I started. There are moments where you realize that and you're like, oh, this is a lot to do. There's already a lot of relationships in a film, and there's a lot of tenderness and care around a film, and that's just increases. So I stopped making documentaries some years ago as a director because I think it's so much responsibility to the people as well as to the audience, to the people in it. And this was sort of a little bit like going back to that,
Yeah.
despite being fiction. Yeah.
There's so much to love about this film, but it's such a celebration of LGBTQ culture, and also, really shows this multi-generational queer family on screen. And I can't remember the last time I've seen, such a multi-generational example, of queerness on screen. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it was really important to me, the idea that we were speaking within our own communities about the past and like kind of future thinking, but not in a way that was really segregated. Sort of like, why are we not speaking to each other more, especially on screen? Why am I not seeing these characters? I feel like there's so much to learn from, my dad's era and the people that I grew up around in terms of resistance and renewal. And sometimes we forget that that part of our lives, there's so much to take from that era that I feel like is just largely ignored. And then at the same time, I watched like someone of my child's age and trying to grapple with, ideas, like expressing new ideas and trying to find ways to make things clearer and simpler, and have more clarity. And that being kind of seen as scary or a distraction from things, and sort of wanting to be like, let's talk in a way that we're all queer, we're all in a room, we're safe, like we can speak to each other, and there is a kind of shared, despite all of our differences, there's such a shared experience that we have as a queer communities. And I think we need to celebrate embrace that, especially as people are coming, on the attack. For me, it's like celebrating the things about us that are good, the hard and the messy and the difficult things that we all have. But like at the heart of that, the love that we have for each other and being able to be critical with each other as well was where we really wanted to go.
I can't remember exactly where I read this, but there, one of, I think it's really important. Um, what it means to be young and queer in 2025 is so much different than what it means to be young and queer in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So much has shifted. Can you talk about that?
When we started making this, I felt that more explicitly, I think, where I felt like there was this support network. There was LGBT clubs at school, and there were things that we just could never have dreamt of, I think, at one point. And I think there is a feeling that, young people have got, it's like, it's okay, you can be out and you can have language and all of these ideas. At the same time, they're still grappling with the shame that comes with being sort of outsiders, or like sitting in a classroom and everyone talking about heterosexuality as though it's normal, and everyone is that except some people somewhere, you know. So there are these shared ideas. And as we start to watch, like, it become, there be such an attack on this community, I start to really be afraid that kind of back in the closet sort of feeling is happening again, or it could happen again. I hope not.
Exactly.
Is it different? Yes, it's different. My dad's generation would be like, I didn't even have a word. Like, I think Jim says that in the film. I didn't even have a word for this when I was growing up.
Yeah.
So I had the feeling and no words. And as much as we can berate language and we can like get annoyed at each other for getting too explicit about things or being too forceful about language, there is something freeing about having words sometimes, and knowing that other people have that experience. And I think I really hope that that's what we can offer with films like this and festivals like yours, that the reminder that there is so many varied experiences, but we share things, across those generations too. Yeah.
Exactly. I neglected to mention, the amazing ensemble earlier. Hannah is played by Olivia Colman. Jim Jimpa is played by John Lithgow. Francis is played by Aud Mason-Hyde. And all the performers here are just so amazing. The entire ensemble is amazing. But what I really liked about this film is that, there's obviously, some tension between Hannah and Jim, and maybe some things are unspoken. Um, Francis has an idealized version of Jimpa, but you know, and then slowly they start to realize that Jimpa has some beliefs of his own that may be contrary to what they believe in. Can you? I mean, I guess this really isn't a question, but I just love the fact that there's just these relationships and these. But can you sort of talk about the fact that Jimpa may not be the idealized person that Francis thinks?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like, we're really interested in the idea that the stories we tell kind of make us who we are. And
Yeah,
in this story, Hannah, as a filmmaker, but also as a parent, has a story about her life, has a story about her dad. And that story is very helpful, that story has allowed her to raise a child that is really comfortable in their queerness and is able to feel like they can be themselves, and therefore idolize their grandfather as this kind of heroic figure in LGBT history, I suppose. And that is a great story. Is it the truth? Partly.
yeah,
Yes, no, of course not. Yes, like all of the things. And I think what we were exploring was that idea of why these stories and what they mean. I mean, Hannah doesn't choose to debunk that story either. Like, and some people may say that that's a kind of repression or her not wanting to deal with conflict or whatever it is. I think it's also a kindness and a decision about the narratives and the stories that we want to be talking about. I don't think that it takes away the hurt that can happen, because I think people are real. and their ideals don't always match their behavior, and their ideals don't always match who their action tells us they are. But we can kind of keep aspiring to remembering the parts that have been amazing, interesting, that have moved us forward, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's about Hannah or Frances being blind. I think Frances, having gone through this experience, sees a lot more about their father and a lot more about their grandfather and a lot more about their mother as well, and is able to be a richer, more, full human. But I think the narrative idea of Jim as a kind of hero stays, and is strong. Yeah.
When you were starting to put this together, did you have any actors in mind as you were starting this?
You always do. I always do have some actors in mind, and I always wanted. I don't know if we ended up. Yeah, Aud. I mean, Aud is my child who plays Frances, and Aud was really young when we started writing, and they. And the thing that happened was that they got older than their character, which was interesting and kind of helpful in terms of us talking about them playing the role. I think it would have been really hard if they were the same age, or, so that was always there as an idea. Olivia was someone that I always thought would be really interesting in this role, because the character was written on the page as kind of a cold character, and I really wanted someone who was very warm in the role to kind of like counter this. And I always had her in my mind. I tried so hard to get the script to her, but it was really hard. And so I wasn't sure that would ever happen. And it kind of happened in a serendipitous way. I didn't have anyone in my mind for Jim. And I always knew that I needed to cast Hannah first to kind of work out that balance. And what was incredible about this is just like the big ensemble of actors, and being able to cast, like in Australia, in the Netherlands, this big ensemble of excellent, really interesting individual people. And so the set was like this queer mecca of just like bubbling beauty.
I saw this film at Sundance, and then I actually met you at Framebond briefly earlier this year. And
Yeah.
again, congratulations. And I know it's been a long journey, but congratulations. Kino Lorber is distributing this film, so congratulations on distribution. This film will be, seen by people all over the world, and that's great. But just again, I sort of mentioned this earlier. Can you sort of talk about what it means not only to have this film out and getting seen by the masses, but being seen at this particular time in our world where there's so much going on against our community?
Yeah. Yeah, it was really shocking to kind of put this film out at this moment, because I think when we started to make it, we knew we wanted some actors who would bring a large audience to the film. We wanted to make it a queer movie, but with actors that would allow it to be seen in a broader way. Because although we were making it for a queer community, we wanted, I feel like everyone is a queer community in some ways. Like everyone has family members. Everyone is inside, in some way, this group of people. Taking it into Sundance just as things started to shift so dramatically in the US. I mean, maybe they were shifting already. I guess they were. But it's been such a year of revelation in terms of like the way that people are being treated, and the way that the LGBT community are being targeted, and particularly trans people, of course. But that's not going to stop there, is it? I think that it's really easy to feel like there's this division and this really intense divisiveness between everybody, because that's what we're being fed, and that's what our algorithms tell us, and that's therefore what we think is going on. But every day you see people and you spend time with them, and you're like, this isn't the feeling. This isn't the feeling between us. And I think it's really important that we keep watching stories and we keep speaking to each other about these ideas and what it means to love each other, like how we treat each other. And the more that we can see this as something, I always hated the word normalized, but I don't anymore. It's like, this is really important, that we're looking at the experience across many characters, across a family that love each other deeply.
Yeah.
So for me, it's vital. The idea of resistance comes in many forms, and one of them is stories, and one of them is love, and perhaps that's the biggest one. you
Yeah.
know, is like to hold our hearts and to keep our hearts really open. I think we're porous people, we take in a lot of feelings. It's really important for us to keep doing that and not become rigid in our points of view. So I guess there's a big lofty way of like saying I'm so thrilled that when people are watching this and when people are responding to me and all the different feelings that people have about this and their shared connection to it or their feeling of not having had a family like this or wishing for something, like that all feels good. And I want to hear more about everyone's everyone's unique stories. And I hope the film invites that conversation too.
That's great. I just have to say, good luck to you, Leo Grand was a film I've watched so many times. What an amazing character study between these two people. I'm just amazed. I enjoyed that film. So thank you
Oh, thank
for
you.
this. Thank you so much for your career. Jimpa plays Out on Film on Tuesday, September 30th at 8 p.m. at the Midtown Arts Cinema. I am so happy that we're screening this film. Sophie, thank you for making this. Thank you for sharing it with us, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks, Jim. I really appreciate it.
It was lovely talking to you. Thanks so much.
You too.
Thanks.